And we're live. Hello and welcome everybody to this segment of the Wide World of Warhammer. With us today, we got the beautiful Victorians, starting with himself, the man, the myth, the legend. Jeremy, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good, Sam. How you doing, man?
Tickety-boo, living the dream. Get to see you and the beautiful lads from Victoria. What better day? What a great day. We also got the man...
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the one everyone's been waiting for, so here we are.
Absolutely. The Victorians are here. That's what really matters. So saving almost the best till last. So we've got the Tasmanians after this. So almost saving the best till last. Also, we got the sexy one, the blog for the blood god, the man, the myth, the legend, Chaos's one and true only fan. Dean Sivek, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good, man. Thank you very much for having me on.
No worries at all. And as we were discussing before the show, just, this is no Microsoft Teams virtual background. This is a literal background. Just rolled out of bed and had it ready. So it was all good. It looks beautiful and ever. As well, we got Sam Dutney. So he's a rep for Victoria. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. The alpha Sam in this chat. I'm just the small little Sam. Sam Dutney can be alpha Sam for sure. So before we get stuck into learning all things Victoria, so just go around the room. So Jeremy, how did you get into 40K and how long have you been playing for people who've never heard of you?
Well, it's been a while. I think I got into it. Well, as probably most of us is the case for most of us. You really liked the hobby as a kid. So as a kid, I loved Warhammer. I loved 40K, I loved fantasy. But then at the end of high school, I kind of ditched it. I just got distracted by World of Warcraft and uni and traveling and all those kinds of things. And then I picked it up around 2000. I think it was 14, 15-ish, around then. And yeah, so it's gone fast. It hasn't feel like it's been that long since I've been back, but it's going on about 7-8 years now. And I basically came in right at the end of 6th edition. And then it rolled to 7th. And so I've now been in 3 full editions, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Yeah, that's me.
So a well and truly experienced veteran on the team and someone who's been playing quite a while. So that's fantastic. And be very ready for the next edition when it comes to WTC. So hooroo. So Dean, someone who's a Chaos fan, as you can see in the background, and all you're known for. But how long have you been playing 40K for? And have you played anything but Chaos?
Not really. I've got a whole bunch of different armies in front of me. The Chaos is behind. But I've been playing since I was probably 15. So, it's a very long time now. But most of that time has been casual play, slowly building up a Chaos army over time. And I used to play with my brother a lot, and he used to basically just everything that I would buy, he would buy something that hard counters it, and then I would buy something that hard counters that, and we'd just go back and forth. So our collections just grew and grew and grew. But then when I moved into Melbourne, I started playing in the tournament scene. That was probably, maybe 10 years ago now. And that's when I started dipping my toes in things like Marines and Tau and, Necrons and Demons and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, my passion is well and truly with the World Eaters and the Chaos Space Marines for sure.
Happy days. So do you still try and go back and forth with your brother, or are those
not
days
really? We don't really see each other as often as we probably should, but so it makes it a little bit tricky because he doesn't come down to Melbourne. He doesn't play in the tournaments or anything like that. So he's fallen off the radar a little bit, but I've got a whole new bunch of people that I consider almost family down here with Jeremy and Sam included. So we get our regular games in and we've got our own little, grudge matches and our own little competitions going on. So that itch is well and truly scratched.
There we go. That's awesome. So you can still buy counter meta products and models along the way and still try and relive that experience if you really want to. So fantastic. How about yourself, Sam? So how long have you been playing 40K for? So someone who became the rep for Victoria this past year. So someone's sort of, I guess, from the outside perspective, new to the scene, but how long have you been playing 40K for? And how'd you get into the hobby?
That's probably pretty accurate to say new. I like a little bit like Jeremy. I was exposed to it when I was a kid. I had a little bit of dabbling in fantasy when I was 8 years old. But we moved to a regional area when I was a kid, and there was just nothing at all in terms of a scene. So I put it away for the better part of 20 years, and then actually got re-exposed to it through the Dawn of War video games, and then got back into the scene when I moved to Melbourne in 2018 and started getting involved with 40K. and very quickly got involved in the tournament scene because it was a really good way to play a whole bunch of games really quickly. And I've been playing ever since. So it came in midway through 8th edition, and been playing pretty consistently since.
Yeah, more than fair. And someone I know is a Deathwatch fanboy and fanatic. Is that very true? Like, you just like purging Xenos and being a Space Marine man?
I'm not sure if that's meant to be a meme, because the Deathwatch list I played last year was actually written by our man Jeremy Martino at I think 11:57 p.m. on list submission night, and I'd never played with or against Deathwatch prior to that list submission.
Well, you you bet it work though. You bet it work. So, what do you normally play, Sam? Then, for people unaware.
So I'm a Blood Angels fanboy, but then play a couple of other factions as well, AdMech in particular.
Very nice, very nice. So we've got the Greek himself, Alexander Iglesias. So he'll be very chuffed to hear about some AdMech. I'm sure he's very happy. But so look, going back to like last year. So obviously you guys attended last year's ANZ TC. So, and all three of you were there. So I know. So all three as players for the team, and Sam like filled in last minute. It sounded like. So how'd you guys go last year overall? So maybe Jeremy can fill in. How did you guys think you went overall as a team?
So last year was a I think it was okay. Like I think we, if I'm not mistaken, obviously anyone can correct me. I think we finished 4th overall. We just missed the podium. And I think day one wasn't very good because we kind of the last year it was potted in a way that you couldn't if you got locked out of the top 4 pod in day one, you couldn't actually get top 4 on day 2. So the way it worked out is we actually missed that pod on day 1. So we kind of like essentially limited ourselves away from a podium through just having some tough rounds day 1, not doing so well. We ran into a couple of strong teams, but I think we drew or lost. I think it was a draw with South Australia, which was a round that we probably hoped we would win. And then we lost to WA, who were a strong team last year. They almost won, but overall, and to be fair, our performance wasn't great. There were some issues in the second day with like recalibrating the round points of the teams due to some like infractions. So that's why we actually ended up finishing 4th, because that kind of like we jumped over SA, but it didn't actually change the way that we could podium. We still couldn't really podium. So I think we went okay though. I feel like as a team we bonded well. We introduced some new blood to the team. There was some new kind of guys on the team. Like Sam hadn't played before. We had like a couple other players, like Lockie from Risky Rollers was on the team, and he was playing Tyranids and did really well. So kind of the veteran players got to have a bit of fun, like me and Dean, but we also did struggle a little bit as well.
Yeah, but that's great. Like obviously, you got to experience, get a lot of fresh blood in there, and get them some ANZ TC experience. So, Dean, that wasn't your first ANZ TC? Was that like one of your multiples, or?
So, well, I've been to I think 5 now as a player, and in my experience, like I actually look at last year as a bit of a disappointment, if I'm being truly honest, because Victoria's, we've won it before. We've podiumed pretty much every year that we've gone. And I like to think Victoria is a very strong state, and we have some exceptionally, skilled and talented players. So for me, it was a little disappointing not to hit that podium. But, it is what it is. It's a dice game. Sometimes the luck goes against you. And being a team's, game as well, there's an element of coordination that's required to pull off those strong wins, and that doesn't always work out the way you hope. So lots of lessons learned from last year, lots of changes put in place for this year, which is really good. So I think we're going in this year much, much stronger than last year. And hopefully people see our last year's results and discount us, and then we can sort of use that to surprise them and show them that Victoria's back at full strength and we're back in force. That's what I'm hoping for this year.
Absolutely. And you take it over the captain role. So is this your first time captaining, Dean?
So I was captain in, I believe it was the 2019 team. However, unfortunately, due to COVID, or it might have been the 2020 team, either way, due to COVID, that was the one year that we didn't get to go. And that was quite a blow for Victorians. As you guys know, we got hit with the lockdown hammer harder than anywhere else in the world. So it was quite demoralizing. There was a lot of players fell off, and there was a lot of recovery work that needed to be done to get people back up to being match fit and even just motivated and interested in the game. So that kind of was challenging to navigate those waters as the captain. But now having a second crack at that captain role, and it's looking good.
Yeah, and it's safe to say, like, your team is stacked with all of really, really great players. I know, like, so talking about like lockdown hammer, like Adam Camilleri, like when he went over to US for the first time, the Art of Warhouse, like he said, that's like the first time he's played 9th edition. It's been like almost 2 years at that point. Was the edition's been out? He hadn't had the chance to play really any real life games, which just proves the point. So, like, yeah, you guys were hit very hard. But thankfully, we can all play now, so that's the best part. So living up. So, but Sam, what was like your first time being at ANZ TC experience? Like thrown in the deep end, listed at 11:57 p.m. First time playing with something, and first time being at like such a prestigious event. Like, how did you find the event overall?
I think the event itself was amazing, and Ben Wade, full credit to him, he did a great job as TO in terms of the venue and the way it all ran and the quality of the terrain and everything like that. So that was fantastic, and just to be in a room with so many great players was really cool, and I got to have some great games against some fantastic players from different states, and it was a great experience in that sense. It was a little bit disappointing, probably like Jeremy and Dean have said. I'd been picked in 2020 and 2021, and obviously with COVID didn't get to go. So I'd been waiting 3 years, and so from a results perspective, it was probably a little bit disappointing, and I don't feel I personally performed to the level I would have liked to. But I think that's all part of the learning experience. And I know that I came away from the event as a better player, even if it didn't show in the results at that weekend. So I definitely learned a lot, and also learned a lot about the event, and just it really gave me the itch to want to do some good things for Victoria outside of the playing team as well. And it was a real motivator to try and get some stuff done over the last year.
That's fantastic. Hell yeah. And like, you've done a great job with the Vic rep as far as I can see. So great kudos to you for that. And I'm sure Victoria's in a very good spot because of some of the work you've done and everyone else. So Dean, so you've taken over the captain role this year. What are some of the biggest things you wanted to change? Like, so we learned from last year, maybe a bit disappointing on the front, but what are the biggest things you wanted to implement heading into this year? Like, was it something about practice?
Well, there's a lot of things that are like sort of subtle changes that we've made, but I've sort of got a unique philosophy to the way that I've sort of put the team together and the way that we're approaching the event. And that is that we've gone through the process of selecting the very best players we can. And then I'm giving 100% control and responsibility to those players when it comes to what lists they want to run, what factions they want to do, how they want to sort of construct their lists, how much practice they want to put in. You know, in previous years, we've had, you know, various different versions. We've had mandates where it's like you must get X number of practice in. We've had situations where we've had, you know, a list writing process where you have to write your list and submit it for approval via, you know, a more experienced veteran. We've had those sorts of situations before. And this year I've adopted for a much more like good faith, you're on the team because you're the best. So I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to sort of do that like from the bottom up leadership style, where I'm here to select the best team and then show them the support that they want if they want it, and just make sure that they have all the tools that they need to be the best version of themselves. That's sort of my philosophy going in this year. And I think that's really working. It's a huge morale boost. It gives people the freedom and autonomy to explore their various lists. If they want to change faction last minute, they can, but I'm never going to force them to change faction last minute. So that gives them the that sort of agency and ownership over their results, which hopefully is going to generate two stronger results on the table.
That sounds fantastic. It's really like gives credit to the players. Like, look, you're in control. Like, you can do as good with it as you want, or potentially as bad as it. And the only fault is on their own, right? Like, if they didn't get enough practice days in, if they didn't write, I guess they didn't pick the right army, or if there was maybe a certain responsibility they had to sort of lean towards, they didn't do it. It's the fault's on them. Jeremy, is this like sort of the most freeing and like creative way you've seen this being done? And like, how have you found this experience and process?
I think Dean's done a really good job. I mean, I've heard it discussed on other podcasts about like the way, like the kind of Victorian scene overall. And I mean, I think it's something that's common in sports in general, not just obviously 40K is kind of like a sport, right? Like especially on the competitive scene. But just like you have times where you just need to kind of prioritize well-being over other things. And I think Dean, as captain this year, has prioritized player well-being and team growth and team coagulation and kind of like bonding. So like he's done a really good job of making it like a positive experience. And I'm not saying that it hasn't been in the past, like it has been in the past, but he's really made a point of making it about players feeling welcome and comfortable. And I'm an advocate of that actually working in practice. Like I think if people feel safe and happy and supported, they tend to then take a positive attitude into their performance, and then that tends to boost them. So I kind of feel like it's not a style too different from what I would do as captain myself. I think it's a really effective way of getting people to buy in. The downside of it, like just if you were talking theoretically, is that you might have someone just not buy in at all. Like if you're not pushing people from behind, you might kind of feel like, okay, some people are just going to drop the ball, submit a crappy list, not practice. But that hasn't happened with our team. Like our team, Dean's kind of given people the free reign to do what they want and to be really autonomous with factions. Like it doesn't really need to be mentioned specifically, but there were people jumping around and it was up to them to make the decision. But I think people appreciate it, and the way it's worked out, I feel like we do have a pretty strong lineup definitely in terms of players. And then people are feeling like they've jumped on a list they like. Because one of the biggest issues and we have done that in the past, and it's happened with other teams as well, when you kind of throw someone on a list and say, we need an X player. We need a player on this faction. Bobby, you're on it. And then you throw Bobby on that list, and he feels under pressure. He feels like, oh, now I have to get all these big wins because I'm playing the meta list. And then often that just crumbles because that player then doesn't feel supported. They feel like they've been thrown under the bus. They feel like all the weight's on their shoulders, and then they buckle, and the whole team can suffer for it. So this year, I don't think we won't see that because we have everyone really keen and supported.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like when you throw someone on like a list last minute, or they're not as experienced, like they can buckle. Like last year, I'm traditionally quite a defensive player. I was on Hail of Doom, Eldar, and like trying to get those 20s and get those big wins. And it was a struggle. Like it was hard for me to mitigate. It's something I've never played before. So yeah, definitely understand that. So that's great to have that autonomy. Sam, so could you list out, so who has actually made the team for this traveling squad this year? I understand you also have 3 coaches, which is amazing to have like that deeper roster traveling all the way up to Queensland. So who have you got on which army, and like who's the playing team?
So obviously we've got Dean as captain, and he's running his, I don't know if you want me to go through their faction, but Dean's running CSM, but as a Chaos Man. Jeremy is obviously here as well. Reese Cunningham, who's back from last year's team, a really, really strong player in Victoria and still probably considered a bit of an up-and-comer. The People's Champion, Stu Trainer, and Gus Hebblewhite. We've got Lawrence Gutierrez, who's a new member of the team from Risky Rollers, really, really good up-and-coming Knights player. And Dylan Cohen, who's done really well over the last sort of 6 months or so with Marines in particular. I'm sure I've just missed some of that, and of course Adam Camilleri.
Mr. Big Dog,
Adam
so
Camilleri.
Who is he? I don't know about him.
Never heard of him. Sorry, and of course Adam, who's back from overseas. So that's a really strong addition to the team, obviously. And then from a coaching perspective, we've got Dalton, who was our head coach last year, and he's back in that same role again. Did a fantastic job in that role, and he was picked specifically for that job rather than being the 9th player or so forth. He was kind of earmarked from the beginning to be the head coach and lead our coaching team. Alongside them, we've got Ben Ashton, who's a newer player as well, who's been doing really well, and he's our 9th player. And then Matt Jackson from the WTC Australian World Champion team is also on board as one of our 3 coaches.
Hell yeah. I love those guys. I've had the pleasure of playing against a bunch of them, actually. So I met Ben Ashton over TTS, and like we played a bunch, and we played at Uprising last year. So he's an absolute legend, and a bunch of you guys are awesome, always great. So we had the pleasure of playing you guys last round at last ANZ TC. So it was good to play against you guys. So strong lineup, like Stewie Trainer. It's glad to see him back, and like Adam Camilleri basically in the team. Like Stewie went super well at LVO this past year. Like only lost to Nassim in like the 5th round or something like that. So is a gun of a player. So exciting team and a very exciting lineup. So
and just a shout out to Stewie coming off the back of a second place and undefeated at Radicalism on the weekend over 6 rounds. Did a fantastic job there. So he's coming in great form, which is really good.
Absolutely. And I understand also you guys had like a 16-player squad, so you had that depth at Victoria. So, Dean, like, what's it like having this like 16 people be able to play potentially? And how did you guys sort of incorporate them? I understand they were sort of used like as a training squad almost, or like people get invested in and understand what happens.
So, well, one of the approaches that I like to try to do is when I'm sort of building the team for this year, I'm also conscious of next year, and I try to make sure that I'm incorporating the people that might not be quite ripe for a player role this year, but if they spend 12 months with the team working with us, maybe they'll be prime position next year, because through attrition you'll lose your more experienced players as they get tired and they drop off and they're not as interested in playing anymore and those sorts of things. So I think it's really important for the state to be fostering those newer players the whole time. So I basically opened it up that pretty much anybody who applied would be given a spot at some capacity. So whether they be given a player role or a coach role or what I call sparring partners, where they're part of the team, they'll get the merch, they get to represent, Vic 40K. They're welcome to travel with us if they want and, share the Airbnb and share the experience. But their primary role is people that we can get benefit from them in that we get practice into them, but they get benefit from us in that they get more regular games with those sort of top tier players. So it's sort of a fostering a community perspective that's designed to try to make it so that Victoria is not only as strong as it can be this year, but we're also setting ourselves up for success in subsequent years.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know Josh Diffie in the Queensland chat, he was like chatting away. He said Victoria in the past, sometimes they would just choose the 8 best players and not really pay attention to others. And like through attrition, like those players were gone and he couldn't build up that base. So having that 16-player squad and people who apply, get involved is fantastic. And you're able to like develop those growth. And people who are maybe a bit on the edge, like, oh, do I want to, do I not? They get bought in, they get invested, like, oh, I can actually compete. And then they're living their best dream. So it's fantastic. Jeremy, like, Adam Camilleri's back in Victoria. Like, how big of an impact is it having like a former WTC player on your team? Like, has he brought a lot of influence to the lads?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really seen Adam much since he's been back, obviously, because he's literally essentially just got back, and I just got back from a trip to Japan, so I haven't seen Adam yet. But Adam's like he lives and breathes Warhammer, and he's like a spiritual leader within the community, not just one of the elite players. So like people really like Adam. He's got a really good attitude. He's always positive. So especially some of the like newer players really appreciate Adam's energy. As I'm sure you do, and like just the community members really appreciate Adam. So he brings that kind of like glue element to the team, which I'm not saying, people like myself, Dean, Sam, etc., couldn't also help the team bond, but Adam has that energy about him as well, which is really useful. But then he's a player that I played him at WTC last year, and he was one of my toughest opponents, and he had a really good run through the event. Like, I know that he was playing on the Mercs, and that was a bit of it was a little slightly controversial situation to have a strong Australian player playing on the Mercs. And it wasn't Adam's fault. It was just kind of something that panned out that way that we ended up getting paired into them. But he did really well. Like the Mercs, that Warhammer United Merc team did really well. Adam was a really important member of the team, and he had great results through that event. And it's so he bringing that someone that's kind of used to and comfortable with just kind of like sparring and playing and squaring up against some of the best players in the world, or even players you don't know who they are. Like at WTC, if you're matched into a player from just a random team, whether even like a team like Sweden or Finland or one of those kind of like good, strong teams, but you don't really know necessarily their player base because they don't have much of they're not in the English speaking sphere as much as some of the other, countries like the USA and England. You don't really know what to expect. So you go into those games assuming that they're elite, and very often they are. So Adam's done that now for 2 WTCs. Actually, I think three WTCs I think Adam's played. Yeah, I think 3 or maybe even 4. I think it's 3. So he's now done that for that's 18 WTC rounds. So having him in our team means that when we play like Queensland or New South Wales, one of the stronger teams, if he goes into one of the stronger players, like it might be someone like let's say a Josh McMillan or someone like a Hayden Walduck, like we know that Adam can square off and give that guy a shake. Whereas, and I'm not saying we can't expect that from our other players, but Adam's someone that you can kind of throw in the deep end and he'll hold his own.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And like some people can get intimidated when there's someone like a named personality against them, like, oh shit, this is X person. And it can be intimidating. Like it's fair to say, but when someone you certainly know has played against someone of that caliber, they can just play it as normal. So you mentioned there a couple of times, Jeremy. So obviously, part of the winning Australian WTC team. That was after ANZ TC. What were some of the biggest learning lessons you took from WTC, and like how will you apply them to this year? Like, was it something about how the lists were designed for yourself, or the pairings and how you did it? Because we know you as the pairing god or the pairing wizard, along with Eric. So, like, what are some of the lessons learned from WTC that you hope to translate over?
I think what we did best, obviously I can't speak for everybody, but I think most of the guys would agree that the WTC team this year, and also in 2019, because our culture didn't really change throughout both years, we were just really positive, and we built a team that really got along and had and just enjoyed being in each other's company. Obviously, you're never going to iron out every single interpersonal tension. Like if you've got a team of players, 8 plus 4 coaches, whatever it might be, you're going to have niggling little things at times that pop up. And that happens even between strong friendships, where strong friendships have struggling moments. But we were able to kind of forge a really, really positive attitude. And then that meant that then we really felt like we were a strong team. We really felt like we were a unit. And we kind of wielded ourselves like that. Like we had our big chant. We had an Aussie chant that we were doing at the start of each round. I won't finish the chant, but some people might know how it ended. But like the point is that we were definitely intimidating. People were intimidated by the cohesion of the Australian team and the confidence we had, because we all had confidence in each other. Like everyone had confidence in me and Eric on pairings. We had confidence in our heavy hitters to slice through and get the 20s, which they did. People like the Erics, the Liams, etc. Then you had your scrapping players doing really well as well. So we had everyone we knew were performing their roles. And that was something that, I feel like that's the formula, is to build the confidence within the team. Have we done that this year? I think so. I think Dean's taken that approach of creating that good vibe, And I think one thing with this Victorian team is because of just the fact that we don't have that build up like you have with WTC. You have like a week almost. Some of the guys had more than up to 2 weeks of traveling and bonding together. We don't necessarily have that, but Dean's been hosting tons of hobby events. So tons of the kind of players on the team have hung out and chatted and had drinks at Dean's place over the last like 6 months, or longer. Like people, so they've bonded and started to form those kind of like friendships and trusting bonds that I think are really important when you're in the actual frying pan.
Oh, that's awesome. That's obviously something part of the Queensland scene, is having those like days at Eric and Simon's house to play games and just talk shit and stuff like that. Dean, kudos to you, and I'm sure people from across Victoria doing that sort of thing, just like getting together, chatting over Discord or whatever, and getting games and just talking, learning. So it's fantastic. Dean, it's fair to say, like, obviously you're blog for the Blood God, create a bunch of content. Is it hard sort of limiting and like not releasing all the content you want because you have to keep some secrets behind closed doors, or you don't mind too much?
It's sort of, when I first sort of started, because I've been blogging since before I've been attending tournaments like that, because when I used to live in a small country town, that's when I started my blog. And I started it because I had no one to talk to about Warhammer, because it was just me and my brother, and I wanted to, fan out. So that was actually originally a blogger who then turned competitive player. Whereas I think a lot of the more, famous names out there, they were a competitive player first, and then they started blogging about it. Whereas I've gone the other way around. And I've always found that when I share things online, often I improve my own game by discussing these ideas and sharing these ideas and bouncing them around with people online. So even though there's the disadvantage of doing, a 5 video series on Black Legion, talking about every matchup and how I play it. And, you'd think that would be a detriment, but often I'll read through the comments and people will comment things, and then I'll learn from the community. And it's sort of like, it sort of feels like cheating almost, in the way that I've got this whole network of coaches, like all of the people commenting on my videos and engaging with my content. They're all helping me get better and helping me refine my play style. So I actually don't think it comes with any real tangible disadvantage. And so I'm pretty much a complete open book when it comes to that sort of stuff. I'll just put every little trick that I can think of. I'll immediately go, cool, I'm going to put that in the list. I'll make a video talking about it. And I'm more interested in everybody getting better at the game so that I can then practice against the best version of them, which helps me get even better. And we get this like positive feedback loop where we all become amazing. I'm much more interested in that than the sort of hold your cards close to your chest sort of, that sort of level of competitive play. I'm not as interested in that, to be honest.
No, more than fair enough. And like sharing those ideas and like having that conversation is amazing. So that sounds like the best form of coaching you could ask for. So don't sign up for Art of War or Vanguard Tactics. Just create a YouTube channel and start getting YouTube out.
Just go read through the comments online. Sometimes the comments are more interesting than the content of the video.
There we go. That's a secret sauce right there. Too good. So Sam, as someone who was new to the ANZ TC last year, what sort of words of wisdom and advice have you been giving to the newcomers to the squad and people first time attending the ANZ TC, whether as a coach or as a player or as just a practice partner? Like, what some words of wisdom have you been providing?
So for the newer players that I've spoken to about it, it's mainly just been about having confidence that they've been picked in the team because they've been doing a great job and they're going to play really well. And we're fortunate that, coming into this year compared to, last year, there's less of that kind of lingering issues around COVID and so forth, particularly that were impactful in Victoria, which has meant that there's been a pretty clear run for the entirety of the preparation. And that's meant that those players who are on the team have been playing a lot of reps. They've been playing a lot of reps with their preferred factions, not necessarily the specific lists, but they've played a lot of reps with their factions, and just reminding them to have that confidence in themselves because they've done the work, they've done the preparation, and they were picked because they had the quality to begin with. And also just to enjoy it, that it's a really great event. They're going to have a fantastic time. They've got great support from guys like Jez and Dean and Adam and Stu and others who are going to help them to be able to perform at their best. And they're going to have a great time doing it. In terms of our coaches, it's been probably a little bit more structured. We've been having conversations around how the role of each of our three coaches and how that's going to support the players who are obviously competing. And what we can do, or what the coaches can do to try and make it the best environment for players to be able to do what they need to do and focus on just playing well. And I think that's one of the lessons as well that Jeremy brought back from WTC and how impactful the coaching team was for Team Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. Like having those assistants on the side just to be able, as simple as it is, like getting waters or picking up models and putting objectives down, just remove as much stress as possible and just provide that support system. Is that fair to say, Jeremy? Like having your own personal delivery, like it's happy days?
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Macca can do just as good on the table as he did off the table last year, because he brought some premium grapes. Those grapes tasted so good. I don't know what Macca did to them, but they were almost as luscious as Macca himself. But basically, it's just that, and there's psychological support as well as having people there helping you, just knowing people are helping you. But just like one example I used was like I often get paired into a player, and you get that like 10-15 minute period where maybe not 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes period when pairings are like we finish your pairings. It's like, okay, game's starting now, and kind of people are going to their tables and moving their armies to the table that they're being picked. And there's that 5-minute period before you kind of start actually playing or setting up and stuff. Like I remember saying to like Wayne Russell, or Wayne was really like, he helped me a lot with that because he was very like understanding of these kinds of things. Like I just be like, Wayne, I need to go to the bathrooms, just wash my face and just kind of think about things. Like, and he just go and say, all right, I'll go set up your deployment zone and place the train and make sure the train's. But he'd go and do that process that I would have had to have gone and thrown myself into. And just him doing that meant that I had 5 minutes to go and just chill and think about, okay, who am I playing? What secondaries do I need to pick? Just have that clear 5-minute thinking time. And just having those coaches there, and we all know it. And this is one of the best things about ATC, is because we're running this like WTC kind of mock, essentially it's a mirror of WTC. All the states get to see, even states that don't have WTC representatives, get to see, okay, this is why coaches are important. They get to learn those lessons as well. So then we're building that culture in the whole country. And that's why I really think one of the reasons why Australia is so strong internationally is because of ATC. Other countries don't necessarily have it. They don't have like regional based WTC mock-ups. Like some do, like some countries do, but a lot of them don't. And one thing that we do that, say, for example, I know that Brits do the Home Nations tournament where they get all the British Isles teams kind of meet with some guest teams and they run like a mini WTC, maybe with like 8 teams. The thing is, that's just national players. So you've got your national team. Those same players are like practicing. But what about all the other grassroots players? What about all the other players spread throughout the UK that aren't doing that? Whereas in Australia, we have like, we've got 10 teams at this event, 8 players plus coaches. So it's probably about, let's say, 11 to 12 people per team. That's between 100 and 120 people in Australia experiencing this. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a very effective thing that we're doing to build 40K throughout the whole country.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it just helps improve people's overall understanding and impression of the games. Like, I'm sure the Kiwis, so a bunch of them attending the WTC.
Yeah, sorry, and the Kiwis as well.
Yeah. Oh, no, of course. Like, I was saying the Kiwis, some of them are attending the WTC for the first time this year, and like going to ANZ TC, they'll get a taste of what it will be like at the WTC. So I know Alex Taus from the South Island New Zealand team, he's going over and like going to a big 8-man event and seeing what the Australians do. It's like, oh, okay, I can translate that over to when I attend the WTC, and as well as other great lessons. So I think it's more than fine. And I think only thinking off the top of my head, like only maybe Poland. I mean, people I know of, like obviously France have the massive team events, like the team league, and then Poland have their own internal scrimmages. There's always TTS, like nationalized events, and Sweden probably have theirs as well. But like the Americans have the ATC, but that's only 5-man teams, and it's all like various representatives from all across regions and stuff like that. And like just Team Art of War just goes and bonk or something like that equivalent. So yeah, it's great to obviously bring people up and have people represent their state. So yeah, really good insight there for sure. Maybe some other good insight is, Jeremy, you alluded to before, you were in Japan for 2 weeks. So, and I saw you attended the Warhammer Cafe in Japan. Any hot tips or meta choices that were there in Japan that you picked up while you were there?
Yeah, so Japan was awesome. Obviously, if you haven't been in Japan, go to Japan. It's really cool. That cafe was awesome. I actually looked it up afterwards. There's some in the US. I believe there's some Warhammer cafes in the US. And I think the one in Tokyo is the only other one. I might be wrong, but I think it's the only one outside of the US. And yeah, it was really cool just to see that really, and there were so many people playing, tons of people. There were a lot of expats in there actually. So a lot of like Westerners in there playing, but there were quite a few tables with Japanese people playing. And my understanding is it's actually quite popular in Japan. I know that Japan has a lot of competition for 40K because they're massively into like, you know, other hobbies as well. Like there's so many other competitive things. Like they're really big on like, you know, they play a lot of mobile games, but they play a lot of things like, you know, Street Fighter and those kind of like arcadey kind of games. But having said that, I believe there are quite a few scenes going, and my understanding is some of the WTC guys were actually trying to get some Asian teams involved. So I know that it's been hard because last year Japan was still in COVID lockdown. They've only really just got out of their lockdown. That's why I kind of went, because I was like, okay, they're out of lockdown. I'm going straight to Japan. But they've just come out of lockdown, so they couldn't come because of that. Similar with like China and some of the other Asian teams. Now that we're COVID's kind of behind us, obviously touch wood, we might see in coming WTCs a lot more like South American, Asian, you know, hopefully from all continents. It would be great to see like a South African team or something like that. But we'll obviously see how we go.
Yeah, absolutely. We can just grow the world of Warhammer and get more people involved is fantastic. So yeah, I know a couple of people live in Japan and stuff like that, and it's a bit hard. Obviously, space is one thing, and that competitive environment is there though. And it's about getting into the hobby and getting people involved. So hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next years to come, we'll understand more and more. Dean, so we had a question in the chat though from Dale Sumner. So lists are out. Who was the team that surprised you the most with quality picks and list design compared to what you were expecting from last year's event, and like the most improved per se, like? Who, like state-wise, or maybe some lists that caught you by surprise when you were going through, if you want to share that?
I'll be honest, I haven't actually finished reading through every list yet. I'm about 80% of the way through. And there hasn't been any real massive surprises, if I'm honest. More or less, everybody's running the similar sort of factions. There's a little bit more World Eaters than I was expecting, which I'm actually excited to see.
You have at least one Angron there, so there you go. You have a Land Raider as well.
The Angron list is a good one. Good to see him represented on the table at that, the highest end of 40k in Australia. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't really think there was anything there was nothing that gave me pause. There was nothing where when I was reading through it, I was like, wait, what? They're bringing what? I like to think that hopefully my Chaos list will provide that experience for some of the states, because I believe I'm the only Chaos Space Marine player in attendance. I'm pretty sure all the other Chaos factions are either World Eaters or otherwise, but yeah.
Is there a Brass Scorpion list there?
I don't think so. I think
thank God. Thank God.
Do you have some PTSD, Jeremy, from that?
Not really. It was actually a really good game. It was really enjoyable. Everything was great about it. Going into the losers bracket round one wasn't great, but
put him away when he comes over.
Yeah.
Because I understand. So the down on 40k major, you paired into round one, and unfortunately lost. But it's a weird skew list, and it worked. Hey, the guy Carbo went 3-0 day one, so hooroo to him. It's fantastic. But Dean, you're not playing World Eaters. What's happening? Your whole channel, blog for the Blood God. You talk about World Eaters all the time. Like, what happened here, buddy? Like, you just got a new book, new models.
It really does boil down to a matter of timing. There's only been, since the World Eaters Codex came out, there's only been a couple of tournaments in Melbourne that I've actually been able to take them to. And I just didn't get enough reps in with the World Eaters that I would be confident with, like, the predicting the pairings and the matchups and executing it on the table. And I also think it's very one-dimensional, right? The World Eaters, it's very clear what they do. It's very clear how they do it. And if you want to stop them, it's pretty clear what you need to do in order to stop them. Whereas the Black Legion, I've got way more reps with them. I've got way more experience with them into multiple different factions. They operate in a similar sphere in the things that the World Eaters are good into, the Black Legion are good into, the things the World Eaters struggle into, the Black Legion struggle. So it's a similar realm that I'll be operating in, but I'll be operating from a place of much more experience. And also they have so many more tricks that you can pull off. And I've got a lot of experience knowing which tricks to pull off and when and how to pull them off. And given that there's no other Black Legion players at the tournament, there's probably no other Black Legion players, in the local areas where the other players from the other states are operating. I'm hoping that I'll be able to, leverage that experience on a faction that they don't have experience against. So that's the sort of driving thought behind the Black Legion.
Yeah, more than fair. It's good of you to recognize that, because obviously I'm sure you love to play World Eaters and play that monodimensional shooting phase that World Eaters have, right? That's what they do, right? Shoot.
Yeah. Okay, it was a very hard call. I ummed and ahed on it for Jeremy and I went back and forth for 2 weeks going pros and cons, and it was just every time you'd throw up a pro for one, you'd throw up a pro for the other, and it was like, wow, it's actually a really, really hard call. And I have been playing World Eaters. I took them to Radicalism last weekend and had a bit of a play with them there. And I've taken them to a few other events recently. So I'm definitely building towards that and heading in that direction, particularly from a content creation perspective, because that is my passion. However, it felt like the right call was the Black Legion. And after the lists that I have reviewed, I am very glad that I took the Black Legion, because the World Eaters, you only need a couple of key things in your list to stop them, and pretty much everybody has that. So, it was definitely a good call.
Yeah, for sure. What were you saying, Jeremy?
Yeah, one thing I was going to say, is I spoke to Dean about this and Sam, because we were having a chat the other day. We were just having a few drinks at Dean's, and I was kind of saying that I feel like World Eaters and Sisters are actually quite similar. The way that World Eaters and Sisters play, they both have quite good secondaries that are kind of somewhat uninteractive. If you think about secondaries, there's the World Eaters one where you just kill things, basically, you get points. And then you discard Blood Tithe, you get points. Sisters have Defend the Shrine, just pretty easy to score. And they have the Leap of Faith, pretty easy to score. So they both have these dependable secondaries. And they can kind of play that scrappy game where you kind of try to just slow the game down, make sure you get to score all of your secondaries without getting tabled, and then try to score quite a few 8 primaries. and get like a minimum like 75 out of 100 score. So even if your opponent gets 100, you get 78. It's not a huge loss. So I feel like because I was on Sisters and I have so much experience playing Sisters, I kind of said to Dean, like, you can play World Eaters and it would be great. Like, but then we have two lists that are really similar, that play really similarly. They can both be really explosive and get big wins in the right matchup and in the right, if things go your way. But then they both kind of want similar tables. They both want to hide. They both don't offer shooting. So if your opponent has really good anti-combat screens and anti-combat things, I just thought that, that you kind of you take one or the other. And that's actually, it looks like most teams have done that. Like, it doesn't look like teams are taking Sisters anymore. One of the reasons is I think World Eaters just does it better. I think for the most part, World Eaters does the Sisters Fire Blanket style of play just more effectively and more with less things that can go wrong. The flip side is I've had like 2 years of experience on Sisters. So I was like, well, I could jump on something new and Dean could play World Eaters, but then we're both playing things that we don't have as much experience on. So we just decided to go with the more of the what we're used to type of thing.
Sure, that's more than fair. And that's obviously very responsible of you guys to check the more, I guess, data-proven point, because obviously getting that pairing information as close to possible is critical, like for that person who does the pairings. And we have a local Black Legion player, like Joe. He's playing World Leaders for ACT, and he was very jealous of your listing. He was like, he wants to go back to Abaddon and live his glory days because he was just tearing up the local scene with it. So
you'll have to send me into him.
There we go. We can have a good old chat. There might be a meme generation in the background saying who's the one true Chaos God, but we'll maybe see the light of day soon. But yes, he taught the local scene while people were playing Emperor's Children and stuff like that. He was mono Black Legion all the way. So yeah. So Sam, obviously, unfortunately, not be able to travel this year for the ANZTC, but like the Vic scene has grown a lot recently. So I know obviously the Rat Boys are like sort of running events out of Ballarat. And it's a bunch of content creators. So the Risky Rollers, Legends and Law, Blog for the Blood God, and Adam stuff. It's growing obviously out of Victoria. Like the Victorian scene seems to be growing. Like what is it with Victoria that's got all this content and all this great events and tournaments going on? So what is it? Like what's with the culture? And like how do you help to try and facilitate this culture and great vibes?
Well, look, I really can't take credit for it or anything like that. That would be really disingenuous. I think we've got the reality is we've got some fantastic people, Hamilton up in Ballarat and the Risky Rollers guys and Adam and other content creators and so forth and gaming clubs and so forth that have been around for a while. And I think that there's been a real appetite post-COVID, and without sort of dwelling on that, for people really wanting to get back into 40K and wanting to kind of, make up for lost time to a certain extent. I think that that's been has facilitated people coming out to support events, and that's then made it, easier for TOs to be able to keep putting them on and put them on reliably. But it's been a couple of fantastic people in Victoria who've been driving that. And we're really fortunate that we've got that motivated group of people who are doing some great things. In terms of support, like we haven't done, there's not much we can do other than try and promote things. And part of that was through the rep role and working with Dean was about creating a website for Victorian 40K, which had access to tournament calendars and things like that we could try and use to promote some of the stuff that's going on in Victoria. But really, that's only in a really nascent kind of stage, and there's a lot of work to be done over the next 12 months or so with what happens next. But it's just we've got great people in Victoria. We're really lucky. We've got awesome people, and they do great work.
Yeah, they absolutely do great work. And the link for the vic40k.com.au is will be in the description below, or you can see on the screen right now. So Benny Way commentating about Dean's camera, like as we were saying at the start, just rolled out of bed. Just this is the way it is. So it's awesome. Jeremy, so obviously we understand you're one of the two people who do a bunch of the pairings for the WTC team, and I imagine one of the person leading the Victorian pairings. Obviously, not going to ask you for too much information, but how critical is it to get like correct data for your pairings? And would you have any like one or two words of wisdom for newcomers for pairings?
Okay, so I think that you're spot on, Sam. I think data is the most important thing with pairings, because if you don't have the correct data, then you can come out with a projected win. Out of the 160 available points, you can do pairings, and your little spreadsheet can say that you are going to get 120 points. But then if that's just data's wrong, then it's not your fault. Like if you do the pairings and you get 120 points, that means you did well with the pairings, right? But then when you lose the round, it might not have been, obviously it wasn't because you did the pairings wrong, because you got good outcomes, but your data was wrong. So I think the two most important things are, the first one is getting your data right, is making sure that people in your team have a breadth of experience and that they feel comfortable with their data. I think a really important thing is that players are responsible for their own data, like they put their data in. So if they, for whatever reason, think that they're bad into something, like, Dean might say, oh, I'm really bad into sisters, hypothetically. And then even if I think Dean's wrong, if I'm like, Dean, come on, man, like you can do this, you can do that. Maybe in the coaching period leading into the event, I can try to help Dean get his score up versus sisters. But when it actually comes to the point of like getting the data in and solidifying it for pairings, you need to trust what the players think. Like if Dean thinks he's a 5 into sisters, and then I match Dean into sisters and say, oh, Dean, you're in playing sisters, but you're a 12, right? Like you're a 12, yeah? If he thinks he's a 5, the fact that I think he's a 12 is irrelevant. So you have to kind of go with what players believe, trust their data. If you feel their data is too conservative or too overconfident, that's something you have to address before the event. Like you have to address that in the weeks leading into the event. Once you're at the event and you're playing, you need to then back the data you have. That's the first thing. And then when it comes to pairings itself, there's not many tips outside of just it's a process that requires a lot of practice. And I think just practicing, like me and Eric, for example, leading into both WTCs we've been to, we did hours and hours of practice where we would just be on the phone pretending to be other teams. Like Eric might pretend to be Poland, I'm playing as Australia, and then we'll kind of do pairings that way. Other ways we would do it is we would both be Australia, and we would then theorize what we thought the best thing they could do is. So we'd be like on the phone to each other and we'd be like, okay, if we put this up, what would they do? What would they think? And we would kind of like think about it and then put up something for them. Then we would do it for us. And we kind of did it. But by basically doing that, we were able to really hone the craft. So I think the two things you need to do with pairings is, firstly, get your data right. Secondly, actually put hours in practicing. Yes, it's complicated, but it's not super complicated. I think it's intimidating for some people, but if you put the time in, the hours in, you'll realize it's actually something you can achieve and get decent results with.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And like people who are aspiring pairing people should listen to that for sure. A selfish question though. So you talked about practice though with Eric. How would you do your practice? Like say you're practicing against some team. How would you go through that practice pairing process? I guess it makes probably sense that common data would be used because your data should be ideally perfect, and that would be their information as well. So you just pair based on that, or how do you try and generally practice into another team?
Yeah, so you kind of the way we did it was to intuitively try to guess what they would think. And that's something, to be fair, you need to have experience, but you also have your own data. So if your data is telling you that world leaders are really good into Space Marines, if your data is telling you that, then you're going to assume their data is probably telling them the same thing. So you kind of can use your data as a basis, but then you might have some secret data that you don't think they'll have. So you might know that there's a flip that can happen, but you'll assume they don't know that. So you kind of generally use your own data, except for situations where your data is very seat specific and refined. Then you might when you're emulating them, you'll emulate them with more conventional wisdom. Whereas, yeah, so typically it's kind of intuitive, but assuming that they have similar data to you is never a bad thing, because I think a lot of people underestimate their opponents. And in Australia, obviously, for example, Sam's done a great job in Victoria. Dean and Sam fostering culture in the state, but around the whole of Australia and New Zealand, we've now got 2 New Zealand teams. We've got a 10-team ATC, which I don't think we've ever had before. It's kind of showing that there's growth across all states and in New Zealand. So I think it would be silly to underestimate anybody. To go into a matchup, going against ACT, for example, it would be very silly and you'd be very silly to underestimate ACT. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to win it all, obviously. So just don't underestimate us for sure. So, but speaking of like states and who to underestimate or overestimate, let's go around the room and like who are some bold predictions who you think will be on the podium? So starting with yourself, Sam. So who do you think is going to be on the podium this year?
Well, the obvious answer is Victoria. Yeah, you can't. I think you'd be a fool to bet against them, against us. I genuinely do think that the team that we're sending is really strong. I think we've got great captaincy. We've had great practice. We've got great players who I do think are on lists that are very competitive and they're really confident on. So I think, I'm hoping that other teams will look at our result last year and see a few names as well that they don't recognize and think that we're not in a strong position, because I think that we know we are. But I think you'd be hard. It's always going to be hard to look past Queensland. They've been so consistent for such a long period of time. I think I'm looking at New South Wales as well, as I think they're going to be really strong this year.
Yeah, like very strong teams have been growing, and I don't think anyone's underestimating you at all. So they'll better be ready. So. Dean, who do you think?
Sorry, having said that though, I mean, you also shouldn't count out WA. They were second last year. They've got a huge scene over there. Michael Bask does an amazing job over in WA, and I think they've got a lot of returning players and a lot of good talent. So I haven't mentioned them, but that's as Jeremy said, you can't underestimate anyone, and certainly we wouldn't be underestimating WA because we know just how good they are. It's just a testament to the quality that is in the field this year that they didn't already get a mention.
Yeah, exactly. And like so I was on Pete Littell like a while ago. He said the 3 times been to ANZ TC, he's come second every time. So like WA is almost on the cusp for sure. Like they've got to have it soon, and I'm sure they're hungry as anything to get it this year. So, but Dean, who do you think's going to be in the podium this year?
I think Victoria's going to take all 3, first, second, and third. No, I think like Sam summed it up pretty well. I mean, the only thing that I guess I would add to Sam's analysis of it is that I think that the general skill level of all players has increased significantly. So the gap between, your top tier player and then that next tier down is nowhere near as big. And any of the big name players could easily fall to anybody at any stage. It's just a matter of time. So while I think teams like Queensland, you look at their lineup and you're like, that's stacked. That's a lot of top players. But with the skill level of the general field going up so high, I think it's only a matter of if the dice happen to fall a certain way or somebody makes a certain key mistake that gets caught on them, it's entirely possible that they go down to, New Zealand, North Island, and people we've never heard of before could very easily take out someone like Queensland. So I think everybody should be going into this with that in mind and not being too overconfident, unless, of course, you're on the Victorian team, in which case ramp that confidence up because we got this.
Just to the moon. The stonks are all the way up. They're all to the moon. I think as it's been alluded to multiple times that the overall player skill is just increased drastically as like the amount of content that is out there and how to get good at 40Ks. And for people who are aspiring and stuff like that, like, guys, they have all the exact same tools as you, and it's also sometimes nice to see when you play against such a caliber player. So I had the pleasure of playing against Jeremy at Uprising the year before last, and when I saw him, I was like, he's a very good player, and like he won the game, but it's like, I'm not that far off of being at that level. It's like I can get there. It's not unachievable. It's not like some Usain Bolt sprinter. It's like I'll never run that fast. It's like I could potentially be there. So. Maybe one day. So, Jeremy, who are some of your guests for the podium?
Okay. Well, I think I'll go with my pick. I think New South Wales are in a really good spot. I don't think they've ever had a stronger team. They've got heavyweight players like McMillan and Chris Wright, but they've got now Brodie Middleton, who's a WTC player, playing for them as well. So they have 3 WTC players in their team. That's more than anyone else because Queensland don't have Liam this year. So it's literally and we don't have Morrisoli because I have a little feeling like I might see a Leia at the event, but I just don't know why I have that feeling. But anyway, New South Wales, I think, have never been stronger. They've got a really elite top end, and they've got a really deep bottom end in that the bottom players, like the players that you might rank 6 to 8, are like tournament stalwarts, heavyweight players that have always kind of been playing. They're really reliable. They're really tough. So like, I really think they have the tools to beat anyone. So they're actually my favorite for the event. My dark horse is actually the Queensland Mercs. I think they've got like fire in their belly. They've got their previous captain Denise is in the team. Like, he's really leading really well. They've got some really up and coming fresh talent that, you know, Eric and others and like the normal blokes and everyone's been like fostering. So they've got some really strong players in there. Queensland, I think they're in the bin this year. I think Queensland, like, and by the way, just so everyone knows, the last time Victoria played Queensland at ATC, we won. It was the 2018 ATC. That's the last time Victoria's played Queensland. Every other year we've dodged them, you know. I don't know why we dodged them. It couldn't possibly be that we were on the bottom tables, but the last time we played we actually won. So we're going in for the 2 out of 2 if they happen to run into us. So never heard of them.
Is that a grudge match then, Jeremy? Round 1, let's go against Queensland? Like, just call it out.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, I know we've said it privately, like ACT versus New South Wales. Like, come on, guys! Like, we're interstate rivals. Let's make it happen. Just get it over and done with. You know, we know who's going to truly win. So, it'll be good, but we'll see what happens. So, well, no, maybe Queensland are dodging or submarining. So here we go. Or not submarine, but, you know, avoiding you some way. But yeah, so before we wrap things up, so just go around the ground. So Sam, any final plugs or shout outs you want to have before we wrap things up?
I'd just like to give a shout out to all of our TOs and organisers in Victoria. So there's a lot of great events. There's the guys who do Radicalism. They've got RatCon coming up later this year. It's going to be a huge event. I think tickets go on sale for that May 6th. So that's one that's definitely worth traveling for people interstate. I'd also like to thank our sponsor for this for the Team Vic, the Risky Rollers. Thank you for their support in supplying the uniforms for the team this year, which is a great support. They've got a lot of events coming up. Check out their Facebook page. You can check out vic40k.com and .au and see the tournament calendar with a lot of events for Risky Rollers. And I know that they've got some huge events coming up later in the year, which are going to be worth keeping an eye out for, with some really professional events with some really great prizes and so forth as well. So definitely one to watch out for, but also all of our other tournament organizers. Dean does a lot of local events. The Target Acquired guys down in Geelong. There's so many great guys in Victoria doing awesome work. And we really appreciate everyone who's involved in the scene down here in Victoria.
Well, yeah, fantastic. And thanks for that. I'll be sure linking the Vic 40K stuff in the chat below, and Risky Rollers. They're a great bunch of lads. I had the pleasure of playing Lockie Bets at last ANZTC, the last round. So that was awesome. That Tutor Warrior spam. Shudders. But they're a great bunch of lads, and they do great things, and they're just absolutely ramping up the tournament scene. It's incredible. Jeremy, any final plugs or shout outs before we wrap things up?
Well, I'd like to thank, obviously, Sam for having us on. Like, really, you're doing a really good thing. Really like the grassroots kind of style you've approached with your podcasts. Dean and Sam, like, obviously, we've got a really strong core in Team Vic, and I think, you know, I've got to thank my team members, squad members, and Adam as well for like stepping back in, and he really made an effort to come back on time. Like, because he's obviously in the States, like having a ball, having the time of his life. So like he actually made a commitment saying, look, I will be back. So I'd like to thank Adam as well as the whole squad. And I'll also thank the sponsor. I think the Risky Rollers, they're putting on so many events this year. They've really built a lot of infrastructure. And I think that's really important that, you know, when a state's building, you build that kind of like that tournament and like scene infrastructure, like getting all the terrain, getting all the tables, getting like, you know, really creating a situation where the scene can grow. And I think they're doing a really, really good job of that. And they're plugging away with their content. If you haven't already, check out their YouTube channel. They're doing some really high quality battle reports. So like Dean's been on some of them, I've been on a couple, and they just have a really, really good format, and they're doing a really good job with it. So good on you, lads. Keep it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Really amazing. But finally, any final plugs or shout outs?
No, I mean, you guys covered pretty much all of it. I guess the only part that's left is thanking the Queensland team that are hosting the event this year. It's no small feat to host a teams event, let alone an 8-man teams event, let alone one with 10 teams. I know that's got to be a very daunting task to, facilitate that. So huge shout out to them, and I tip my hat to them. And thanks for having us on. The channel's doing really good stuff. So yeah.
Can I also just give a shout out as well, just to the down under 40K lads as well, just Benz and Dale and all that, like so friendly. And they threw a really good event a couple of weeks, like it was just before I went to Japan. Their event was fantastic as well, like just such a good high quality event. And to see just that like level of quality over all states, like Queensland, Josh McGowan's putting on amazing events. Victoria, we got the Rackham boys, we got the Risky Rollers, and to see the Down Under guys in New South Wales doing these sick events, it just means that when you go to an event, one of those those events outside of your state, you feel, oh, okay, this is actually what I can expect now. I can expect really good terrain. I can expect really good tournament structure. I can expect good ref teams. I can expect, like drinks and being able to get stuff. So like good shout out to them as well. I think they've done a great job.
Absolutely. It's amazing to see that Australian 40K is growing so well. And like those up and coming states like Tasmania, ourselves and ACT, we're getting more and more events and they're growing and growing and growing. I hear the Tasmanians always joke that like some of your Victorian side pieces should be able to come over and represent Tasmania. They basically steal all your tournaments anyway and just stake all the golden tickets back home. So like, come on, represent Tasmania. And you basically play for their events anyway. So look, it's amazing to see Australian 40K growing and New Zealand 40K growing as well. Like obviously the guys from Kraken Wargaming and there's a bunch of lads in the South Island just growing and growing and growing. And it's inviting as more people will come travel. So it's fantastic. But before we close things out, I don't know if you remember, Jeremy, but last year, ANZ TC, we were playing last round, and I heard you in pairings. I heard you talk a bit of shit. I'm not going to lie. You said when the Tunids went up and it was you had Eldar. I can't remember what the situation was, but you're like, this is an easy win for us. It was Tunid Warriors versus Halo Doom Eldar. Now, were you talking shit or was it true?
Was this into you when you played?
Yes.
Played them? No, I think I was just needling. I think I was needling you a little bit. One of Australia's secret sauce is just a bit of pairing shit talk. And Matt Marasoli, I have to say, is the king of pairing shit talk. But I was channeling a bit of Soli energy, I think, with that one. Okay, but you did well, Sam. What was the final score? Did you win that game or was it?
I did. I did win.
Yeah.
14-6 or 15-5.
Yeah. That was into thinking about that list back then. Obviously, Lockie had a great event. I think he was, D might correct me, one of our best performers in terms of what the scores they put in and what they actually achieved.
He was the most accurate with his predictions. He scored the closest to his predicted score.
Yeah, but like his list had something like 60 Tyranid Warriors in it. Because they were like, that was back when they were like 30 points each, and then we just like, okay, I guess we're taking 60 of them. To think of that now when they're like 150 points. Yeah. Yeah.
It was Dark Angels before the data slate.
Yeah. So well done. That was a big win for you, Sam. Good on you.
Oh, look, when you said it, if anything, it motivated me because I'm like a Tunid fanboy. I loved it. I was like, I'm going to win this. Like, I know this matchup. I want to win this. And then we went to the table and went, oh, fuck. Like, I didn't realize, I didn't take into account vital intelligence and like OBSEC at the time. It's like, fuck, I could have fucked this up. But it went my way. It worked out. So that's all that matters. And I heard, Sam, you had maybe the quickest game I've ever seen between like ACT as well with Aaron. Like, both of you guys doing basically the Spider-Man meme, looking at each other like, I thought you're the defender. No, you're the defender. And
yeah, I think that game was over in 25 minutes. I think it took us longer to set up the terrain and deploy. I do remember that was a lot of fun. I did actually really enjoy that game.
Clocking over to each other as you thought you were in a bad matchup and went to a 10-10. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So just had beers and walked around. So that was cool.
Well, just to correct you, it was actually a 12-8 to me. So
sorry, Sam. Sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot you were the
it was my only win at the event, so that's why I remember it.
Look, we saw it as a 10-10 and a half. Aaron got sadly put under the bus quite a few times there, but he took it like a champ. And when we heard it was a very close or high draw, I was like, fuck yeah, good job, Aaron. Hell yeah, man. So there we go. I'm sure there'll be many fun stories at this year's ANZ TC. But before we wrap things up, we just got last couple of plugs. So patreon.com/down under 40K. So if it's good enough for Jeremy to travel over to New South Wales, it's good enough for you. So support the lads and support the content that's trying to cover more of Australian events and do things. There's early ticket sales and special discounts, so all that good stuff. D6 Designs AU, so they help create a bunch of dice. There's a code for DU40KL for 10% off. So get some nice custom dice. I know there's some very beautiful Sisters dice for you, Jeremy, if you need some more fake dice, so miracle dice. So, and the last but not least, Emperor. So Emperor.cc, chuck in down on 40K and get some discounts or some special codes and hopefully create some more things. So hooroo. So thanks, guys. This has been a great conversation and looking forward to seeing you guys in just over a week and a half.
You too, mate.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks. No worries. Thank you, guys, and have a good night. Thank you for everyone.